What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Really quickly, I'm going to just say Minecraft is now 10 years old. But yeah, Minecraft's 10 years old. Really interesting and very weird to think of a game being 10 years old, just recently passing the most sold game in the world, which was Tetris and is now Minecraft. But that goes to show how many people across the globe that it has affected. And everyone's heard of Tetris, and now Minecraft is going to be that way. And that's really interesting, especially due to the fact that it is 10 years old and just broke that threshold. 10 years old and it is still a big thing. It's really interesting. I started playing Minecraft. You could consider me an OG Bedrock player. Because I started on Minecraft Pocket Edition 0.4.0. I think that was back in 2012. I think it was 2012. Back when Minecraft was getting really popular, but I mean, Pocket Edition was horrible. I remember the first update I was excited for was 0.6.0. And the thing that I really wanted most in any update was to be able to use chests in creative. But yeah, with that aside, I'm going to, real quick before I talk about the Linux and Windows thing that is going around, just got to say something that I've been working on. I got a laptop. It was my uncle's. And I had to put a new hard drive in it because we weren't going to replace the hard drive in it. That was his. So, got a new hard drive for it. I didn't get a new hard drive. It was an old hard drive. It was in my dad's MacBook. Mid 2009 white MacBook, not unibody. And if you have ever taken apart a MacBook that is not unibody, you would know that the keyboards have some pretty sharp metal on the underside. And I was like trying to open it up and stuff, and the keyboard was stuck. So I was trying to yank it out. Not very smart. When I pulled out my finger, it was all mangled. But yeah, it looks much better now. Doesn't hurt nearly as much. But that was probably the most eventful part of the last week or so. Taking apart old MacBook and getting my finger mangled. So, with that said, the laptop is currently running Windows 10. It's only a 150 gig drive, so I definitely need to upgrade it, and it's old, so I definitely need to upgrade it. I'm thinking of either a 250 gig SSD or a 1 terabyte hard drive. So it is running Windows 10 for school purposes, because I have to use Unity next year for school. So the Unity game engine stuff. So that was a bummer. I really wanted to install Linux on it, but then when I was like, oh shoot, I have to use Unity, I was like, I'll just use Windows 10. So, you know what? That's a good thing, because I have a Windows 10 machine, so I can still speak for Windows when it comes to not game performance, but usability. I still need to upgrade the RAM from 4 gigs to 8 gigs and put like new thermal paste on the CPU, because it gets pretty hot, and it's from 2014. Probably should upgrade the thermal paste. And the thing about old laptops like that are like all plastic, they're easy to take apart. There's like two pieces. One piece opens up an area for like the hard drive, the RAM, and everything else, and you can take the rest off fairly easily. And then you can get to the CPU. And then just take the heatsink off, put some new thermal paste on. Perfectly good, awesome. Then it'll probably run better than it used to. I also got a new battery for it, but yeah, with that said, let's get into Linux on Windows. So there's a lot of hype around this. Completely unfounded hype. A few people are like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the year of the Linux desktop. Oh my gosh. Oh. It's not gonna be. It's not gonna be the year of the Linux desktop. I'm not sure why people think that. It's not, especially the Linux desktop. The Linux and Windows stuff, from what I can tell, is just terminal. So it's exactly like what is already there. It just has the actual kernel for the back end and not an emulator sort of thing. Or I don't know what they use. Maybe they used an emulator. I don't know if they used some sort of virtual machine or something. I think they would have used an emulator because I think the terminal worked with Windows. Maybe. Well, if it did, that's interesting. I wonder how that would work because I haven't used a terminal like that with Windows. And from what I can tell, all they're trying to do with this is make the current. They're working towards upgrading the current terminal in Windows, the current command line in Windows, to make it look better and make it so people can use it easier. They're not doing anything that helps the Linux desktop. They do help Linux developers. A lot of people they won't switch to Linux if they're helping Linux developers in that way. But from my understanding, it's not as easy to test software like a video game or some other application through the terminal, unless if it's a terminal application. You would have to get a full desktop or some other Linux computer to do proper testing, from what I can tell. So there's a thing right there. Probably won't change developers getting Linux machines or developing for Linux. So the year of the Linux desktop is not happening. I already said that. It's not happening. Totally not. Especially because the Linux desktop is never thought about. No one thinks about the Linux desktop. No one thinks about changing the operating system. Most people will buy a computer and not even know that it is feasible and it will cost less money and it's not that hard to replace stuff in your computer. Even if it is a pre-built custom computer, like the Skytech computers. Most people aren't going to even touch those. They're just going to buy a new computer in 3 years. Let alone mess with the operating system. That's something that only people who are good with computers or who really think it's fun to mess with a computer usually do. Now, some people who aren't good with computers and don't necessarily think it's fun to mess with a computer may be pushed into installing Linux onto their system, and they may like it. But the thing is, the setup of Linux can be hard sometimes, especially if you got a DVD player or something like that, and you have installed stock Ubuntu, and you have to install all of the DVD dependencies or whatever separately from Ubuntu. You don't have to in Linux Mint, which is a pretty cool thing, but you do have to in Ubuntu. That's pretty annoying, very annoying. You can't even play Blu-ray yet. You can't play Blu-ray. That is a huge thing for many people who want to get into Linux, especially if some person decides, you know what, maybe it would be fun to make a desktop into a media, some sort of media thing where I can just watch all my movies on and stuff. But guess what? Blu-ray doesn't work the best on Linux, so you'd have to get you a separate Blu-ray player. From what I can figure out, Windows does work with Blu-ray fairly well. I think it's mainly just the Windows movie player or something that costs money, but I think it's just that can play Blu-ray. I don't know, maybe VLC can. Maybe it's just the Linux operating system that has problems with it. Not totally sure, but I heard it has quite a bit of problems and Windows does not. So that is a big issue. the thing that we need to be focusing on, I don't think that the Linux desktop specifically is going to get more popular if the market stays the same. If nothing huge happens to Windows or Mac OS that nobody likes, if nothing like that happens, then everything's probably going to stay the same or even get worse for Linux. Because every single week I feel the tug of Windows 10 just tugging at me and trying to get me to download it, because there's Minecraft and I can play that with my friends, there's Fortnite and I can play that with my friends. Everything's much easier because everything is made to work with Windows 10. Everything is. But yeah, I constantly feel that tug, especially since my brother uses Windows 10. Yeah, now that I'm using Windows, I don't necessarily feel that tug anymore, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. When you think about it, Linux is not as popular as a lot of people think. You go around asking someone if they heard of Linux, they'll say no. They'll say they have not heard of Linux, and they just haven't heard of Linux. Very few people have heard of Linux. Very few. And yeah, that's another obstacle. People have to actually hear about Linux and know what it is. Everyone knows what Mac OS is. But Linux, no one knows what that is. Unless they've watched every single one of the Linus Tech Tips videos, which, I mean, that's pretty popular with Windows users. At least gamers. Gamers have heard of Linux. Probably a lot of them have. As long as they watch Linus Tech Tips. Or a few of the other tech channels, but I mean Linus Tech Tips is the biggest, let's be honest, and it's pretty funny sometimes too, especially the new tech link that they got. But this Linux on Windows thing is not going to change anything, in my opinion. It's not going to change anything. Nothing's going to happen from it. Absolutely nothing. And even with Proton, nothing happened from that. No one really switched to Linux in droves. And even with Linus Tech Tips now making videos on gaming on Linux, saying that it's better now, blah, 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 it's not that much more people. Sure, a lot of people downloaded Pop! OS, but how many of those people actually stayed on Pop! OS? That would be an interesting thing. And most of those people probably started out with dual booting. Maybe they don't know how to delete Linux, because I had a problem with that. I talked about that in one of my earlier videos. I think I talked about my problem with Linux and Windows, and I deleted Linux, and I couldn't get into Windows, and it was horrible. But yeah, I don't think it's going to change anything. Nothing at all is going to change. It's something big has to change to get Linux ahead of Windows, and this is not nearly as big enough to change it. Now, if all the rumors are true that Windows is going to go to a subscription service, that would change it. But I really don't think Microsoft is going to do that. I don't think they're stupid enough to do that. Frankly, they're just not going to do it. There's still a slight chance that they might, considering they've been going that direction for years now, but with how they have Windows 10, technically it's free. It's not going to really change, although the free version, you can't customize it or anything. I think what we really need to be worrying about is keeping Linux where it is. Keeping it at the same popularity, or at least not letting it go down. Because it wouldn't be that hard for Linux to go down in popularity, especially the Linux desktop, and especially with developers. It'll be pretty hard to make it less popular with techies and people who like computers, who have it already, but it could pretty easily go down in popularity with developers. So that is sort of my opinion on the matter of Linux, the Linux kernel on Windows. Um, I hope y'all liked the video, and I will see you all in the next video.